Hello everyone and welcome to a very special video. My name is NorZZa.
And my name is Evo. So today we're going to be talking about what the future holds for New World. But first, how did your launch go, NorZZa?
Pretty well. We both casted the Method event, so I missed out on the initial launch. I didn't actually play until the very next morning because it was very late in the evening. So I got in with no queues, which was very lucky. And overall, it's been pretty positive, except the queue times, I think. How about yourself?
Yeah, very similar experience. Yeah, missed the first 8 hours of the EU launch, so was fully in catch-up mode, as it were. And as you say, those server queues have been a little bit painful, but trying my best to try and avoid them, getting on early in the morning and not leaving for the rest of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. You're kind of tied to the game. Once you're in, you don't want to leave. You've got to keep AFKing in game and make sure that you don't get disconnected. But bugs wise, I haven't experienced really any, which I've been pretty positive about too. I was a little bit nervous with we had a couple of bugs in closed beta, and it's been pretty positive overall.
Yeah, generally feels very smooth compared to open beta. Had quite a few new bugs that cropped up for me, so I was a little bit apprehensive about how that would transfer to launch, but no, generally been really good. Just the odd little things, we had a problem on our server with Overseer's Dane, just had a 10-minute respawn time, so everyone on their dog were trying to queue up to get in to get the kill on him. But other than that, been really smooth. There's stability problems. I've not been kicked out or crashed or anything like that, so yeah, it's all been really rather positive.
What about overall impressions of the game so far? I guess it's mostly the same as the closed and open beta, but are you happy with the experience now that our characters aren't going to get wiped in a week?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually a really hard thing. I've been playing since alpha, so I've been through more wipes than I can count now. I've always had this mindset of whenever I'm starting off, I know this character's going to get wiped, and now I'm actually playing it and this is permanent. It's kind of a weird experience now, having played it so much. But no, all in all, really positive, really enjoyed it, and very much looking forward to leveling and progressing my character. What about yourself?
Very similar, I think, yeah. I absolutely have definitely felt the difference. It makes me want to actually do the trade skills. Every time I come across, iron, silver, or any kind of the harvesting, gathering items, I absolutely want to go and force myself to go pick them up. Whereas through the betas and everything, I kind of just ignored them for the most part. I knew it's I've got to do that later, but because it doesn't really matter, the character was going to get wiped. It's a different kind of mindset, I think, while I've been exploring the world, which I've actually enjoyed. It's helped, I guess, get rid of a little bit of that monotony of just exploring, because I've been trying to gather on my journey as I'm going, rather than just sprinting from A to B.
I completely agree. I get very much into harvesting. I cannot ignore an iron node. I particularly become fond of rivercress. My latest hot thing I keep going out of my way for, mostly just to flog it on the market and make a little bit of extra gold. But it's all been makes for an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, perfect. So the main topic for this video is the future of New World, and we are in a bit of a stage now where it's a little bit grey, but there's a few things that we know that are coming. One of them is that we know there's some expeditions that are in development, but what do you see overall for the future of New World holistically?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you say, we heard a little bit from some sort of Scott Lane initially on the studio director, who talked in an interview a couple of weeks before release and kind of gave a few bits of indications out. And then people have obviously also been doing some data mining. A lot of that sort of came out on Reddit, which gives us a little bit of a predictable idea of what we might be expecting over the sort of short-term future. I think immediately the team are just going to be focusing on the server stuff. The next 2 weeks, maybe longer, they're just going to be bug fixing, server stability, and the queues, because that's obviously the biggest problem the game currently faces. I think that's the short-term future. Then beyond that, going to be going into the content, really. As you just mentioned, expeditions. I wonder if we're going to maybe be seeing a new weapon or anything like that. Possibly new territories going forwards, maybe raids. What about yourself? What are you expecting to see over the next couple of months?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. In at least the first next couple of months, I think you're right there. It's really just about server stability, worlds, finding that balance of, they've been opening up worlds almost daily at this point, 10, 15 worlds pretty much daily coming up in all of the regions, and finding that stability. You think about a month from now, most of those worlds may end up not having many people on them, and finding whether they're going to merge those worlds with the others, I think, is going to be critical. We've seen everyone has to have a unique name across all of New World, so chances are we're going to get some kind of merging of the worlds, or whether it be cross-world play, we'll have to wait and see. But I would like to know what their plan is for the future of that, because of the rate that they're standing up the worlds, it leaves me a little bit worried for the future when there's a couple of Australian worlds I've seen that have been stood up that have had 100 players in them even at peak hours, just because everyone's trying to get onto those key critical worlds that all their friends and stuff are playing on. And you don't want to be stuck on a world in 2 months from now that has 5 players on it and the world just feels empty when everyone else is having fun elsewhere. So something around that would be really important, I think. But the longer term views is, I think it's really about content and finding content to keep people engaged in the game and keep the game feeling fresh and new. I think the Void Gauntlet weapon that we know is on the way will be interesting, and other things like, I think having more ranged options like a Void Gauntlet, like a physical range, like a pistol, something like that would be cool to have to the game, because I feel like there is still a little bit of more control from a melee perspective. You've got much more melee weapons than ranged options in the game currently.
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly, I would love to see a pistol. That's a weapon I would absolutely just adore if they brought that into the game. I'll be throwing my musket right away and pistol, out you come. So yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And new content is going to be critical. We know there's the demand for the game. There's like 700,000 people tried to log in on launch. It's crazy numbers. We know the demand's there, and it is a good base game. I think that's kind of an important thing. People compare the game to ESO as it is now, but they never compare it to ESO as it was at launch. And I think when you do that, New World starts to hold up quite well. And I think that's where the differences come in. This game has still got years, hasn't it? This game's still got years of development left.
Yeah, for sure. And it's good to know that they're thinking about the long term too, with the extra content and weapons and expeditions that are in development, and that extra territory that you mentioned. And I think that's a really good point, people comparing it to ESO now. I played ESO at launch and it was very different to the experience that it is now. The game was fundamentally a different game. They didn't have any of that. The crime system in the game, the worlds were much, much smaller. They completely changed the end game. There was no dungeon finder or any real end game in the dungeon aspect, which has been added. There's very, very different experience, and it's good to see. New World seems like we've got a lot of content to start off with, and I think the focus on the territories and the PvP aspects being such a critical part of New World will help create kind of not direct content as in the way of an expedition, but that emergent content and enjoyment and time in the game where you're trying to take over territories and do that PvP aspect. I feel like that's going to be really strong for the life of the game.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. The PvP, territory wars, literally just been fighting in a war today. Ever so fun, great when you get together with your company, you can do this sort of stuff. Yeah, really important part of the game. I think one thing I would like to see reworked though, we've talked about more expeditions possibly coming. I'll be interested to see how they implement them. For me, I feel like expeditions are perhaps one of the weaker parts of the game. When I think to say crafting system, as you said earlier, the resource gathering, it's exciting, it makes you want to do it. It's just a fantastic system, it works together really nicely. But I think if you think of the expeditions, I think they're good the first time, okay the second time, but the repeatability of them I think is quite limited. And so I would like to see perhaps a bit of a rework on some of these expeditions, and if they're bringing in new ones, I'd like to see kind of a slightly different style to them, make them a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, no, I could definitely agree with that. Something like maybe, unique weapon sets for endgame if you are doing the expeditions, something like that, or unique weapons, different ways to keep you interested into doing them, or even cosmetic items. Skins is something that we've seen be added as Twitch drops, and there's obviously the store in game. You could add, those kind of cosmetic items to dungeon completion for specific time frames, or if there's some real complicated fights or something. Just those kind of senses of achievements in the game would be really interesting to do, and there is obviously the achievement system which you can give some of that to as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as you say, better rewards for the expedition. And I'd also like to see different monsters in them. So if you run through Amrine, it's predominantly just withered. It would be nice to have some different monsters with different animations, a little bit more of a lore element to it that sort of drags you in. I think would make a real big difference to the kind of overall enjoyment of that. I think New World has such great elements. Just a few little areas that need to be changed and evolved as the game moves into its future.
Yeah, definitely. And the way that the game is structured from a combat perspective, it really lends itself to having the ability to create really enjoyable PvE content because of how fluid the combat system and the movement can be. I would like to see them play around with some really complex fights into expeditions or even possibly raids, which is something that I would absolutely be interested in if they did a 10, 15, 20 man raid, something like that. It'd be good to see the game evolve and the combat system evolve into some of those bigger encounters and see how it shapes up. And, you know, I love raiding content and just having a big open area with really complex boss fights where everyone's working together. I'd really love to see that in New World.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Going raids going forward would absolutely be a way to go. And as you say, as we said at the start, you know, this is about evolving the game to give more content, to feel like the game has still got lots more to do. And raids are going to become a part of that. And I think we've almost certainly seen them introduced in the game. This is what's going to give the game its long-term future.
Definitely, especially as that company growth and keeping that bond with your company together, as well as that raid content for allowing more members of your company to do things together will definitely help with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Completely agree with you there.
Do you have any other things that you would like to see for the future, or anything specific you'd like to call out?
No, I'd just like them to keep working forwards and get the content out relatively quickly, even if it's only a small update initially. I think one of the key things we need to do is to keep player involvement, and showing willing and commitment to producing new content, I think, is going to go a long way to that. I think they've got a lot of stuff ready in the background. I think why this stuff has been data mined and they've sort of planned this out, and I hope they can stick to that. And once they get over the server issues, I hope we can see content.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think for me, the only extra thing I would really like is transparency. You know, content is king, but if they want to be open and honest with us and tell us when things are coming, what we can expect, you know, if there is a delay in content, I'd like to know about that rather than just have silence for a month, 2 months or whatever. It's much better to know that something is coming than know that nothing is coming. Like, you know, you want to know what's happening in the future, and transparency is really important for online games like this. And I hope that they keep that channel open and keep telling us, you know, how far away things are, what they're working on, and things may change in development. That's how development happens, but just keeping those open channels would be really important.
Yeah, no, absolutely, completely agree with you.
Fantastic. Well, my name is NorZZa. I make RPG content over on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/NorZZa. I make educational and guide content for games like New World and other experiences as well, if you'd like to come and check me out.
And I'm Evo Loz Gaming, also doing videos on New World, Conqueror's Blade, and anything really sort of medieval, really. Some guides, some entertainment, and a little bit of a hapless British.
A fantastic British bloke. Well, thank you for joining me today, Evo. I hope we had a good discussion for you guys, the viewers. Obviously, share this video and come and check both of us out. And I'll see you in the next one, Evo.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity, and I shall see you next time.